Everyone, and welcome to this Hypi review video. Today I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know about Hypi, and as usual, if you do have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'll also be leaving a discounted link in this video's description so that you can always get your money's worth for Hypi. So Hypi is basically an all-in-one app builder, but it requires you to have no knowledge of applications or coding at all from the get-go. All of it can be done using a drag and drop interface and simply by dragging and selecting certain things in order to make certain things happen and therefore build your website or app or whatever you want from there. So you start off on this page here. Now you have a dashboard and a console. The console basically just gives you more information about what you've done. You can view your apps, you can view your developer hubs, you can get certain keys and tokens for those, but the main feature is obviously the dashboard, and you are then immediately presented with 3 different projects. Now this determines really how you want to plan your website. Essentially you have a mood board, stories, and the overall app designer. So the mood board is very simple. As you can see, you can describe the collections of ideas. So if I hit the add section button, you can add ideas for what your app's going to be about. So if we wanted it to be an app about just a cookie clicker, we could put cookie clicker, tap to get the highest number possible. There we are. And when we've done that, that will be our idea. And we can add that, and we can add numerous sections to it, and we can add ideas for that specific section of the app. So it really depends on how big your app is. There's not really much point in having a mood board if there's only maybe one aspect, maybe 2. But then again, there might be lots of things to that aspect, in which case you might want to use a mood board. You can add links to it, you can color coordinate it. So if there are different sort of colors that apply to different areas of the app, you're able to do that too. You're able to add an image to it, and you're also able to add videos. And when you want to add an idea, you can add different sections, and you can also add the ideas in this section here, and they will be under these options. But that is basically what the mood board section is. It's very self-explanatory and it's really useful. Then you have your stories, and this is basically mapping out certain things and outcomes of people's actions on the website. So it doesn't have to be people, it could be anything, but if we did want to use a person sort of accessing your website, this is what we do. So you have the persona of this person here. I can either enter an action that this person can take, or shut down the app, whatever you want, and then you can then sort of lead it into different maps and different journeys and adventures that these people are going to take on your website to get an idea as how people are going to use it, what that will therefore mean for it, and all those different things. So it's really, really handy. And also, if I want to add an action, you just start typing what it is, exit the app. We can also go ahead and add an outcome and do exit the app as well. Click off it, and there you have it. Now, over the right, you then have the options for the different ones that have already been existing. So a persona, you can view that person's profile. You can see what sort of how old they are, their level of degree, what they've done, all of that kind of stuff, what industry. So you can get an idea as to how different people on your website are going to interact with it. And that's the main thing. And then finally, once you've had a look at that, you finally have your main project. And this is where we build everything. So going to our designer, this is how you go about completing and building your website. So when you're in, it will immediately give you a little bit of information. It will give you a small tutorial. Now at the top, you can switch between what platform people are going to be looking at. Anywhere from a proper computer to a laptop, a tablet, a phone, or an even smaller phone, depending on how big it is. Then over on the left, you have your main options. So you have your logic, you have your collections, and you have your builds. The builds are basically what release it is. So once you've made a certain change, you can release that as a new build and then publish that, but that's not much. You have collections, okay. But then you have your project tab, and this is where you can make everything. So you can add columns, stacks, all these different things, icons as you can see, and all you do is you get your app that is obviously here, and you can reposition it wherever you want. We're going to go ahead and put it on a small one, just a little bit bigger so that we get an idea. And then what we can do is move it to the middle by using the middle click on our mouse, and then we'll just go ahead and get straight into it. So if I wanted a close button, I would then drag this, and we'd have the close button wherever we wanted it. And all you need to do is you can reposition it, as you can see, anywhere on this sort of section that you want. And then we can add more things. So a drop down button, if we wanted to, we might want to put it here. And then there are multiple children and we're not sure which one you want. So all of these things basically go hand in hand, and it's dragging and dropping at its simplicity. So if I wanted a column, for instance, and I wanted this to go down the left hand side, we'd want to obviously set a parent for it. And once we've done that, we have a parent area. A column, for example, would look like this, and you're basically able to organize everything on the right as more of the in-depth sort of appearance options. So once you've dragged something in, we have this, for instance. You can change the direction of the text, so whether you want things to pop out from the right or the left of the screen, where it is, what it looks like. You have positioning options, cut, copy, duplicate. You can show it on a small or a big screen. It really depends on, and this allows you essentially to set custom appearances for different platforms as well. A YouTube channel looks different on a TV than it does on a phone, and for that reason, obviously, you can change that on here or make it look better or worse depending on what you want. We can also add text fields, and these are very, very simple. You would simply type whatever you want in the text field, and as you can see, you can move them around sort of exactly how you'd like. But once you've selected it, you can select the length, you can select what text is actually in it, where it is, all the different nitty-gritty things to do with that. You can also add stacks, containers, rows, and loads of different options to your website. The other options that we have, we won't go ahead and add all of them, but we'll give you a little bit of a rundown as to what sort of things you can do. You can add boxes, you can add drawers, you can add obviously animations to certain things on the site. You can add intrinsic heights, images, you can add materials, navigation bars, scaffolding, placeholders, all of these different things. You can even add forms and tools and everything like that onto your app so that whoever actually uses it has a really nice experience. Now, moving down, as you can see here, this is more or less your layer tab. So on Photoshop or any sort of editing software, you have layers, and this is the positioning of things above or below on the actual creation itself. And this is very easy. You can move things up or below. This is really up to you, and you can make sure that they fit exactly where you want them to. You can add new screens to your app as well, so it really depends on where the actual screens are going to be. You can have screens that are at the beginning, you can have certain subdomains and all these different things on the app, which is really, really handy to know. But that is the project tab. Now, Logic I can best describe as we might be familiar with a coding website called Scratch, and this is basically a way of coding, but you don't need to know the actual commands and the language itself. So for example, you have all these queries here, for example, and you have all of these options that you can do, and instead of having to know the command itself in the language, you can simply drag this onto your section here and do sort of if and then do this and all different options. So you have all these different sort of areas and categories of commands almost. So you have controls, variables, operators, and actions. So actions will simply do go to screen. So you, for example, if we have a little look, we want a control, for example, and you could do, let's say, when this is fired, this is obviously an event. So it really depends on what happens. So when a certain thing is done on a certain widget, you can then go to actions and you can go here and connect this to the bottom using almost like a jigsaw and go to screen that. And what this will then allow you to do is, depending on what you do on the website and different things that happen, it's all suits really, really well together, and you can make things happen really nicely, and you can visualize it. And that's one of the things that people really like. They like to be able to visualize these different things. They like to be able to see how it works, and that therefore is very useful, and I love this option. If you're familiar with Scratch, this would be a walk in the park for you. You also have tables, so if you want to add tables, you're able to do that. All these different options down here are basically tables with fields that you're able to put stuff into, and it really depends if you want to say email verification, emails, password reminders to come up for people, you are able to do that, and I do like that option a lot. So therefore, as you can see, Apple Mobile, Hypi EMV, webhook response, email verification, password reminder, all these things all in one is absolutely brilliant. So these are the tables, and you're able to obviously add tables or edit, or if you've already got one existing, you're able to add stuff to there as well. You're also able to preview anything and design the layout. So basically, this is another option that I have seen at the top here. We also have preview and design preview. So what these options do is allow you to preview your app before you actually publish it. So obviously, people are able to... What you're able to do is, when designing your app, one of the best things is being able to see what it looks like before it's actually created. And these are what these options are for. And then finally, we have the builds. And the builds is, as I said at the beginning, more or less the overall sort of order of publish. And finally, we have the builds tab, and the builds tab is basically where you're able to see the build, the platform, when it was created, and all the adjustments to it that you've had over a period of time. So as you can see, build number, platform, and created, you can see the evolution and the order of which updates have been pushed out. And you can then go back to old builds. Say there's a bug in a build that you create and you're like, why is this wrong? You can go back to a previous build, have a look at that, and sort of have a little look and fix any issues that there might be. But that is more or less it for Hypi. So what do I think about Hypi? And I have to say I really like it. There are a few caveats that I have to admit. Sometimes the website requires you to have hardware acceleration on, meaning that if you do not have that option on, some of the functionality, for example dragging and dropping, might be a little bit clunky. Completely it still has functionality, but there's a little bit of clunk. So if you are using this, make sure you have hardware acceleration turned on, just to give the website that little bit of oomph and a little bit more power to get it working correctly. But as an actual website itself with the functionality, I love it. The features are great. You can go back, all the build options that you have and the ability for the logic with the Scratch is excellent. I myself have never been very good at coding. I've dabbled in Python in the past and things like that, but I've actually understood Scratch and it still doesn't restrict you. It is obviously, a lot of people look at it and go, maybe it can't do as much as Python. And immediately when you're actually trying to find the bits, maybe it doesn't appear that way. But when you're actually doing stuff, you've seen the like limitless things and creations that people have made on these websites with very similar coding options, for example Scratch, and it just goes to show that it doesn't make any difference. And the project options as well, all those features that you've got are excellent, and I would highly recommend this. But thank you everyone so much for watching. I'll see you next time, but until then, goodbye.